Do you think that that means that there's alien life in the water, or is this simply like, when people fly drones over a body of water and the drone goes down? Is it that simple, or does it mean that there's potentially alien life underwater somewhere?
The video that we were just looking at, my first thought was, that's got to be divers, right? It's got to be divers with those neon lights. And then I thought, no, not at night without a dive boat. That's really dangerous. What did you make of it when you saw this?
Exactly that. I mean, I'm a master diver. There's nobody around there with a dive boat, with a dive flag.
Well, the more logical explanation, and something that's gaining more and more traction, is that there could be an entire advanced civilization coexisting with us here on planet Earth. They could be inside the Earth, they could be under the water in bases, and some of these stories that we're getting about encountering these craft, which has apparently been going on for a long time with the U.S. Navy, are starting to make sense. So it could be a combination of extraterrestrials that have bases here that are concealed, or there's the very real possibility that we're dealing with an actual additional sentient race here on planet Earth.
Can you talk about some of the stories? You mentioned that you're hearing more stories out there of these USOs. What kind of stories are you hearing?
Well, the people are coming forth from the Navy, and they're talking about things where submarines have encountered craft the size of football fields that are moving at impossible speeds underwater. There's videos that exist of these things going from space to air to in the water without really seeming to change based on what's around them. So in other words, they're able to traverse without the restrictions that you would expect to find when you're going through water.
Wow.
What are we looking at right now with this
video? A lot of these
video?
stories coming up, and some of them are coming from reliable people. And you guys are looking at this video. This is a MUFON case that was sent to us, and that's undetermined. That could be anything. It could be some scuba divers. We can't figure out what it is, but we're not sure if it's some kind of alien craft under the water.
The number of sightings that people are having in these locations, and putting it all together, it just doesn't make sense that so many people are unable to I don't know. The UFO thing has been always people focusing in the sky, right? And so it's kind of like now that we're shifting to USOs, a lot of people are wondering if this is a new phenomenon or not, and it really is not. It's the submerged objects have been since the beginning. When we started reporting, remember we had these pilots that were seeing them in the water off of Catalina, and air traffic controllers were telling us that pilots were witnessing this glow, sometimes the size of a city. So here you have this Fort Lauderdale case. It's a lot smaller, but it's really hard to say whether we're looking at a natural phenomena. It's definitely not like phosphorus and algae. It's nothing like that, and it definitely doesn't explain how people are seeing the objects come up out of the water and zip out in these huge flaps that have been going on for decades.
I'm not that well versed in this world, but I haven't really heard of USOs before. Is it now we're talking about it because it's trending? Is it because we have more advanced technology that's bringing the Navy, these different organizations under the water where we can see some of this?
Yeah, it's definitely trending, and the more information that gets released through the political process, it's becoming more and more apparent that encounters with the Navy, encounters with submerged craft, the stories are coming from the sailors, and the official acknowledgments are coming from the higher ups that there's something going on under the oceans that is beyond what we know about today. It's going to unfold over time, and we're going to be learning more.
And then the ones that dive back into the water and don't even make a splash, which is also, it just gives makes the hair on my neck stand on end. Again, I just want to go back to these pictures. Not divers, but is it possible? Well, first of all, have we seen any, plausible explanations surfacing? Like, well, this could be the military testing out new technology. This could be all sorts of stuff that we're not supposed to be seeing. Could be the enemy, although I doubt the enemy wants to be seen like this. But any plausible stuff that you've seen surface?
In this particular case, we really haven't had a chance, no pun intended, to dive into it yet. But this is just an example, like I said, of something that is much bigger, where I've had numerous cases where people are telling us have been out in the boat, they've been far away from shore, which again would be much more difficult to be just divers. And they've passed over areas about the size of a football field. And it's like somebody turns on a switch and the whole thing just lights up underneath them, right? And then you mentioned the fact too that some of them, like we have the USS Omaha case caught on thermal camera, where we have this trans-medium travel where they go into the water, don't seem to disturb it, come up out of the water, sometimes in broad daylight, right? So something is traveling back and forth. You remember Rear Admiral Tim Gallaudet, who's been on the show before. He testified in front of Congress about a Navy program that they're calling the fast movers, right? And the fast movers, they detect and track these objects that travel faster than any torpedo should or could, perhaps over 100 miles an hour. Right. And so you've got the fast ones, you have ones that kind of just linger there, huge, kind of like the size of a city. These guys, I think, were really afraid because they didn't know, should we actually drive over it? What's going to happen if we do? Is it going to take us down, suck us in?
Apparently, there's been a ton of mysterious sightings on either U.S. coast in the water. I want to bring in Alejandro Rojas, a UFO expert, to talk a little bit more about what's been going on. It has so many people talking, Alejandro.
Exciting topic.
Oh, boy. All right. So I'm seeing here that there is a popular UFO reporting app that you have that records these thousands of sightings. What are we seeing?
Yeah, so we've got this app. Take reports, and we're getting hundreds of reports a week. The majority of these reports, I look at the videos and kind of analyze those because I've got a history of experience doing this. The majority are mistaken identity, but there are those that are really we don't know what they are. And we kind of take a stance, or we agree with NASA or the government that really we need to start collecting data, analyzing this data to figure out what's going on. These cases are really mysterious. So what we've been doing now that we've got, historically about 300,000 cases in our that you can look at, but we've collected ourselves in the last years over 40,000 reports. So we're going to group those into collections and then look at some of the characteristics of these different groups. And the latest group we're looking at are underwater UFO, commonly referred to as unidentified submerged objects, or USOs, which is kind of a set of UAPs. And we found some really interesting accounts. We've got a couple interesting videos, one off the coast of Florida, one off of Mexico, and we've got a lot of great, including off the East Coast, and even one closer to you all in Manistee there in Michigan.
Oh my. Okay, so I have to ask you, I remember there was like a congressional hearing on UFOs or UFEs. Did USOs come up in that? I don't remember this term USOs before.
Yeah, it is not as commonly known, but it did come up. In fact, there's a former Admiral, Tim Gallaudet, who addressed this in those hearings. And he did talk about, cases where it's been reported that things move quickly underwater. For instance, an unconfirmed project called Fast Movers, where they're actually kind of a code name they've given these up. I don't know for sure that that's been done. There's been other reports kind of saying that the Navy just collects these reports, they get them, but they don't really pay attention to them, which makes it difficult to then analyze reports. So yeah, it is a thing that does happen, come up in the hearings.
So I'm seeing that U.S. Navy officials warn that this could pose a threat to national security. How so?
Yeah, Tim Gallaudet in particular. So some of these cases get mixed up with like drones. So for instance, there's a couple of cases in 2018 that came out. One from USS Omaha, one from the USS Russell, were mistaken of multiple objects over these boats. So what are those? These guys in the middle of the ocean. What's going on? Why are they happening? Now they've determined those are likely drones. But why this is important, because some of this they're alluding to is potentially Chinese technology, where the Chinese are looking at launching drones from submarines. it's obviously an issue. When it comes to objects that are a little more difficult to explain, such as very fast-moving objects under the water, some people that have reported some of these things are, right off the coast of Mexico or in places with a lot of commercial boats and that sort of thing. So, anything running into something or something coming up that's submerged and runs into a private, boat or something like that, that's where they're safety concern. And of course, when it comes to national security, one of the big arguments, especially with drones, right, that we've had a blind eye to them. We really been taking a close look at the advancements of the technologies and the utilization that our enemies may be using to observe. An example is these U.S. boats being caught off guard and these drones flying above them. We need to have some real tactics. We need to be able to deal with that to ensure this of our sailors, so to make sure that the Chinese aren't gathering the intelligence we don't want them to get.